We've got a great closing speaker for you tonight. Tim Leberecht, he's truly an overachiever. I hate him just on reading his biography. So despite that anyway, he loves, because he has written a book which is all about the business romantic. And he is going to come and talk to us about why the future of marketing is romantic. So he sounds a guy who might know a bit more than the robot at the start. So come on back over from the bar, sit down, and I'm going to hand you over to Tim. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, it's really lovely to be here. I have to say, when I was young or younger, I had a very short and unsuccessful career as a rock musician in a band called Migraine. And I had a little bit of a flashback sitting in this rock and roll green room here. It's kind of a rock and roll venue. It's the tallest stage I've ever been on, I think. Anyway, really lovely to be here and talk to you about romance. So before we start, I'd like to do a quick poll. How many of you consider yourself a romantic, like the way you lead your life, your personal life? If you are romantic, raise your hand now. Okay, I expected more. About 43%. And how many of you consider yourselves a romantic when it comes to business? There's a fewer hands, 28%. Anybody here who is a romantic at work but not in your personal life? Okay, interesting, okay. So I'm a business person, I'm a marketer, but I'm also an unabashed romantic. And I believe the world would be a better place if we had more romance in our lives. And I believe that we must find and create romance in and through business. Now, when I talk about romance, I'm referring to the moments of awe and wonder, moments in which we lose control, moments in which something unexpected happens and makes us fall in love with everything around us. Moments like this one.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region?
You can watch it again and again.
I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me.
Or moments like this one, when McDonald's corporate Twitter account suddenly began to utter somewhat stark opinions on a certain US president, raising the question of whether corporate Twitter accounts only then appear human when they are hacked, which clearly was the case here. So romance is when something unexpected disrupts our routine. Romance, of course, is also what we're hoping for in relationships that amount to something that is greater than just the sum of the parts. And romance is what we're hoping for in movements, when we feel like we're part of something that is greater than ourselves. Now, what's the difference between an optimist, an idealist, and a romantic? The optimist views the glass as half full, always, as we know. The idealist wants the glass to always be completely full. And the romantic looks at the glass and says, "Isn't that glass beautiful?" But it's hard. It's hard to find that romance in business. And this rather harsh quote by the Austrian writer Thomas Bernhard really nails it. Without work, we are miserable. But most of us are miserable at work, as many studies show. And it's not surprising, because many of us, feel themselves stuck in structures that resemble this, maybe in your organization as well. We are expected to be flawless, consistent productivity machines at work. And increasingly, we find ourselves in an unfair, fierce competition with ever smarter machines, software, AI, robots, that outperform us on the grounds of efficiency and might replace 50-60% of the human workforce in 20 years. So what do we do in our despair? Well, we turn into smart machines ourselves. We quantify, we maximize, we optimize. Hence, the rise of the quantified self movement, the quantified workplace, where you see aberrations such as this Swedish company that is beginning to implant chips into the bodies of their employees so they can track every single one of their moves. And this obsession with the quantification and datafication of everything, this idea that only the measured life is a good life, has infiltrated the most private, intimate aspects of our lives. Case in point, this app, Spreadsheets, that allows you to enhance your sexual performance based on data analytics. If that's not your cup of tea, or it doesn't work, then you can use this service called Breakup Text that lets you send automated breakup text messages. Or you stay away from the whole thing by using this web service called Invisible Boyfriend. I love that tagline, a boyfriend your friends can believe in because he's not real. You can receive fake text messages, fake emails, and even fake phone calls at the opportune moment. So this is what love and friendship look like in this super optimized age of machines, of AI. And soon we might indeed be falling in love with our chatbots, with our operating systems, as so beautifully depicted in the movie Her by Spike Jonze. The New York Times wrote about the movie, the great question is not whether machines will be able to think. The great question is, will we humans still be able to feel? And indeed, when everything is measured, quantified, made convenient, familiar, predictable, where do we find these profound experiences that punctuate our routines, that give us a sense of meaning, that lets us meet strangers, strangeness? So where is the magic? Where is the romance? I believe we are at risk of engineering the romance out of our lives. Romance, which perhaps is the ultimate differential in a world of maximizers and optimizers. We've been at a point of such disenchantment before. 200 years ago, the original Romantic movement, remember Lord Byron, John Keats, the Romantic poets, they revolted against a regime of enlightenment, of practical, empirical reason. And in response, they espouse virtues such as inconsistency, emotion, subjectivity, mystery, ambiguity, unpredictability. And I believe we are on the cusp of a new romantic era. We need a new romantic movement, this time in response to the disenchantment caused by the datafication, the quantification of everything. And this new romantic movement must now come from the heart of business, with you, business leaders, marketers, being the new meaning makers, the new romantic poets of our time. But how? How do you operationalize romance without killing the very essence of romance? That is the question. So I'd like to propose 3 design principles of business romance. I call them the rules of enchantment. Do the unnecessary, know nothing, tell no one, and suffer a little. Let's start with do the unnecessary. I recently came across a study that says that the average American has only one close friend. And now, before we make fun, I heard someone laugh, make fun of Americans, which is an easy thing to do these days. Let me assure you that the numbers are not that different in Europe, and they have been deteriorating over the past few years. So much so that experts speak of a crisis of friendship, an age of social isolation, an age of loneliness. Which is astonishing, isn't it, given the fact that we've never been more connected, never been more communicative than in this point in history. But we are lonelier than ever before. And the reason is, as the writer Richard Bach suggests, that the opposite of loneliness is not being connected, it's not hyperconnectivity, it's not togetherness, it's intimacy. And we are in dire need for intimacy in these digital times. And we're seeing a renaissance of analog and digital formats catering to this desire for intimacy, like the good old dinner series. There's a dinner series in the US called Let's Have Dinner and Talk About Death. I think you have something similar here, like the Death Cafe, whose founder just died, I think, a couple of days ago. Myself, I participated in a silent dinner a few months ago where 15 business leaders were sitting across from each other, staring at each other silently. And this idea of intimacy, of forced intimacy, is something that artists are very good at, especially performance artists. Like Marina Abramovic, in her exhibition, the artist is present. She's sat across from one visitor at a time, 5 minutes each, for a total of 780 hours, just celebrating intimacy and vulnerability, thick presence. And this trend of intimacy and thick presence has entered the marketing realm as well. Now there is this trend called slow marketing, which is what the paint manufacturer Ron Seal did. So they literally had an ad where you could watch paint dry for minutes. Zappos, the online retailer, has also a thick presence at the core of their business. And they reward customer service representatives not for how many calls they can squeeze into an hour, not for efficiency, but for how much time they spend with each customer, for thick time, thick presence. And this organization as well is Buurtzorg. It's a Dutch nursing caregiving organization. And they did something remarkable a few years ago. They removed all managers, they removed all hierarchies, and they formed small teams and said, well, do whatever it takes to serve the patient. Two things happened. First of all, they grew tremendously, and then second, turned out that they actually became more efficient. Why? Because they were closer to their patients, more intimately familiar with their needs. You might think, ooh, Tim, this is all very nostalgic. But nostalgia is often misunderstood as a longing for a time gone by. But it comes from the Greek term nostos algos, and it means pain from an old wound. Aching for something profound, something essential that we seem to have forgotten in these digital times. We're craving these concierges who treat us as unique, individual, subjective human beings, who offer us a personal, not a personalized experience, who offer us an escape path from the iron cage of an algorithmic recommendation engine world. And we like brands like Moleskine for that very reason, because they celebrate emptiness in a time of digital abundance. Or this bookstore in Japan, in Tokyo, that has only one book on sale every month. The pinnacle of exclusivity. Or this app, this is my favorite, Forgotify, that lets you discover the 4 million songs that have never been played on Spotify. So all these services, all these formats, they have one thing in common. They celebrate the beauty of things that do not scale. They celebrate small moments of attachment. And any relationship researcher will tell you that the secret of a healthy relationship is not the great gesture, the lofty promise. It's intimacy, small moments of attachment. Moments that cannot be optimized, cannot be maximized. They make the difference between a good and a beautiful life. Principle number 2, know nothing, tell no one. Well, we live in an age where we're inundated with data. Transparency, radical transparency, seems to have become the norm. For that very reason, I believe that not knowing, mystery, makes experiences meaningful again. Take Airbnb. Of course, they are like a data-powered, super smart matchmaking engine. Yes, they are. But at the core of their brand promise is a very romantic premise, which is to peek into the lives of strangers, to not know what's going to be behind that door, what's going to happen next. There's some mystery to the brand. Secret Cinema, which you probably know here in London, showing mystery screenings, getting thousands of people to surprise locations, not really revealing the movie they're going to show. What I find so interesting about Secret Cinema is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which movie they're showing. The secret is the product. And then we're seeing secret societies suddenly becoming very popular within organizations. Accenture has one, Virgin has one. Etsy has a ministry of unusual business. No one knows who's a member. No one knows when they meet. Everybody knows the mandate, which is to inject everyday work life with delightful surprises. So making the familiar strange again, commuting between different worlds, playing with multiple identities, those are not only the traits of a romantic, those are also the features of VR and AR technology. And perhaps you could argue that they are the new romantic technologies of a new romantic era. The empathy machines that let us live and step into the lives of others, that are demonstrating that there's always another world out there, always another meaning possible. And that is a capacity that's going to become ever more important in the future as the Internet of People merges with the Internet of Things, as objects become people, as people become objects, and we all will have to design and manage and trade multiple selves. We will need these brokers of different identities, those who can design conversations based on empathy. And this is why IBM Watson, the cognitive computing powerhouse, has begun to hire people from the humanities, playwrights, poets, screenwriters. This is why the World Economic Forum suddenly ranks emotional intelligence, creativity, critical thinking as the most desirable skills in the future. And this is why suddenly one professional category that was always dismissed as having no commercial value, philosophers, are suddenly very much in demand in Silicon Valley because they know how to ask the right questions and they suffer from the world. Which brings us to the third and the last principle, suffer a little. Now, as you probably know, romance is not identical with happiness. There's a dark side to it. You have skin in the game. You suffer a little. But that is very counter to the way we design most of our customer experiences because they're designed for instant gratification, maximum comfort, and convenience, with Amazon soon delivering everything our heart desires to our doorstep via drones. In Japan, you can even order a priest through the Amazon platform. And yet, at the same time, why is it that we camp out in front of Apple stores with this religious devotion before a new Apple product comes out? Why do we take part in rather dangerous activities such as bull runs? And why do more than 55,000 people embark on this annual pilgrimage to the Black Rock, Nevada desert to celebrate Burning Man, this week of radical self-expression and essentially losing control? If you talk to evolutionary psychologists, they will tell you that our brains are still wired for the Stone Age, that we're still looking for these life-threatening, critical events that give our lives meaning, that give us a sense of fitness, make us come alive. However, we have all but banned them from our modern domesticated societies, thank God. But we need them to create meaning. So what do? Well, we create surrogate experiences. We go bungee jumping, skydiving, we run ultramarathons, or we go to IKEA. IKEA has perfected the art of making its customers suffer a little. It has perfected the art of frustration. If you've ever been in an IKEA parkour, it's like the seventh circle of hell. If you're like me and you try to self-assemble a Billy Oslo clip-on piece of furniture, it's basically a reminder of your own existential incompetence. It's a labor of love. And the same principle of frustration applies to any customer loyalty program. Because they are never about instant gratification. You never cash in your frequent flyer miles. It's about permanent unfulfillment, a very romantic feature indeed. So I would be remiss to talk about suffering without introducing one category of people that is very adept at suffering, and that is the football fan.
Ney, la penjarà Neymar, apareix Sergi Roberto!
All right, so this goes on for minutes, and it's really worth watching the whole thing. It's quite amazing. So what I find remarkable about football is that, of course, fans want their team to win. But something else is perhaps more important. It's how they win, and it's also how they lose. And not so in business, right, where we are primed and conditioned to win at all costs, whatever it takes. A winner-takes-all society. But I would argue that in the future, losing is becoming a critical leadership trait because we're going to lose more often, more frequently. First of all, we're going to lose the stability, the security of a 9-to-5 office worker job, very likely. We're going to enter and leave ad hoc relationships. Everything will be more volatile. We need rituals of separation. Leaders in the future will thrive not because they can win, but because they know how to let go, how to lose control. So those are the 3 rules of enchantment. Do the unnecessary, know nothing, tell no one, and suffer a little. And I hope that they illustrate what I believe is a broader shift from a smart, connected age to a new romantic era, where a different set of principles becomes important. Reacting no longer, but wondering. Monitoring, becoming letting go. Serendipity instead of variety. Big intuition instead of big data. Silence instead of constant conversation. Mystery instead of transparency. Vulnerability instead of calculated risk. Passion-driven design rather than user-centric design. Frustration instead of convenience, and significance, meaning instead of efficiency and excellence. And yes, in this new romantic era, romance will come with an ROI. In case you wonder. First, it's innovation. If you don't have romantics in your organizations, contrarians, those fools who see the world as it is not, but could be, you're not going to be disruptively innovative. Second, customers. If you want customers who not just like you, but fall in love with you again and again and again and again, you have to give them more than just solutions to problems. But if you ask me as a romantic, what is the ultimate ROI of romance? I will tell you, it's more romance. And that is becoming very important because we live in an age of dissonance. On the one hand, we're more connected than ever, but we're also lonelier than ever before. On the one hand, we live in an age of abundance, but the prevailing sentiment of our time seems to be one of loss. We're losing the center, stability, the middle. We're losing our identity, our story, maybe even our human agency in light of AI. And the result is perhaps something like this. Now, this photograph from the G20 summit has been endlessly mocked, rightly so, because of its narcissism. But it's worth taking a closer look because what it shows us is this desire to be part of something greater than yourself. It's this desire and this impossible mission to document and curate your life while at the same time living it fully, living it dangerously outside of the confines of a bureaucratic, technocratic system. It's the rage against the machine, which is now becoming a race against the machines. And this is why it's so important that we cultivate organizations and brands that are gardens and not machines, that offer us a home, make us feel like home by embracing those qualities that are inherently human: character, acumen, spirit, and of course, heart. And marketing in this effort can be, I believe, the great humanizer because it is the storyteller, the oldest technology that we have. It can help us expand the playing field for what it means to be human. And it can embrace what I call the 4 new P of marketing. Purpose, the ultimate competitive advantage when everything else is leveled. Personality, which means that you're being unpredictable and authentic by taking on multiple personas. Passion, of course, you're contagiously enthusiastic. And then lastly, platform, which for a marketer means never to sell, but to create something, a garden, that is so valuable that others want to be part of it, that others want to plug into it. And if it's true that software is eating the world, as the venture capitalist Mark Andreessen said, then maybe maintaining our humanity is the greatest disruption of our time. And if it is true that software is cheating the world, if we live in a post-truth, fake news world, well, maybe we must insist on a deeper emotional truth. Maybe we need storytellers with integrity rather than data sets with objectivity. So in closing, I would encourage you as marketers to embrace these 3 big exponential technologies of our time: AI, immersive experiences, and digital platforms. But not just to scale efficiency, not just to propel growth, but to foster intimacy, to create beauty and meaning, and to enhance solidarity. Let's fight for our right to romance. It's a human right. Let us value again what we cannot measure. Let us use data not just to demystify, but to mystify. And let us create things that are not only more useful, but also more beautiful. Because we romantics, we don't have answers to all of our questions. We don't have solutions to all of our problems. We don't even want to cure all of our pain. We just want to feel more. And business is our ultimate adventure. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Do you feel that was slightly more romantic than my own wedding? So a little bit depressed now by that. But Tim, we had to cleanse some of the questions because given the subject matter, for decency, we can't ask you everything on here. But people wanted to know, what's the best practical advice you have for incorporating romance into your work life? Yeah. Beyond the obvious.
Well, there's a great quote by the romantic poet William Wordsworth who said, "To begin, begin." Meaning that the best way to start is just to start, like do little hacks, Romance is not something that your CEO can impose, like saying, well, we're going to become a romantic organization and here are 10 key performance metrics. If you don't comply, you have to leave. No, it's subversive, right? It can come from the bottom up in certain pockets of the organization. So just hack all the conventional formats, run meetings differently. There are organizations that are running meetings in the dark, do dinners, create a secret society. Just sort of be creative about how you redesign the workplace. But more importantly than that, I think overall is just to have a different mindset. And to approach your business not as a merely transactional enterprise, but really understanding, I think, your company, your brand as a maker of meaning. And every day, every one of you is facing this decision, right, between efficiency and culture. Like, to exaggerate a little bit, right? But I think we all know this, like, well, I can go with efficiency, or I can go with culture and quality. And I think you all have the power, hopefully, or you have to gain it, take it, to err on the side of quality, of humanity, of culture. And I think if you all do that, then I think we create a groundswell of romance.
Okay, and one last thing, just to build a bit of intimacy with the audience. What's the most romantic thing you've done in your work life?
Ooh. Well, the most romantic thing that I've done, probably, that's a good question. Probably has to do with football, since I'm a huge football fan. It was probably going to the Camp Nou for the first time to see my beloved club, FC Barcelona, play. Yeah, I think that was probably one of the most romantic moments.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tim. Brilliant talk.
Thank you.